You're listening to Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Olivia's Book Club, and I'm your host, Olivia Fierro. Very happy to say we are bringing you the joy this podcast week, so stay tuned for after our author segment. We'll have a moment with Margaret and go through some books that bring her joy, so that is after my guest, who is definitely bringing the joy today, so this is so great. It's a return of one of my favorite podcast guests yet, New York Times and USA Today best-selling author Katherine Center. She is called the Queen of the Comfort Read because, you know, I want to hug. I want to hug you, but not in a creepy way, Katherine. It's just one of those things, and that's the way the books make you feel. You've got another book being adapted into a movie headed to Netflix. On and on. And so this summer, of course, we're going to delight readers with what they expect from you, a fabulous novel called The Bodyguard. Katherine, thank you so much for joining me, and congratulations. I love this book.
I am so excited to be here, and I'm so glad that you love it.
It is so fun. So the funny thing is, I actually am on a pretty rigorous reading schedule because of scheduling guests and whatnot. And every once in a while, I just pick up whatever it is I feel like reading. And I was fortunate enough to have this and also have the audio, which is incredibly well done. And that was on my NetGalley. And I got myself off of my reading schedule because I needed to read this because I wanted to. And so thanks for making time to talk to me because it was so much fun. So set the scene for The Bodyguard, please.
Okay, so the sort of basic premise of the story is fun, just on its own, just a one-sentence description. It is a lady bodyguard has to protect the sexiest man alive by pretending to be his girlfriend on a Texas ranch.
Ugh, sign us up. All of the above, right? It's funny, and the way that you present that, there are many books that I love a lot of different types of books, but you know there are many that are complicated that you're like, oh, you're trying to tell a friend, I think you'd like this. Well, maybe it's about this. Well, it's about, you know, and it's on and on and on, and you know. And that's great too. But there's something magical about being able to, you know, you give us that one-liner like a blockbuster movie, and we know what we're going for. And then we get characters and people who are so full of quirks and complexity that we're just all in on this journey.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, it didn't start out as a simple sentence, but it kind of evolved into a simple sentence. And I think that it was because I was writing this book during the darkest parts of the pandemic. You know, everything was really gray, and I was trying to make my own sunshine. So I just kept turning towards whatever the most fun option was. That's what I turned to, right? And so actually the main guy in the story, the kind of love interest guy, was not originally even a movie star. He was originally like a scientist in a court trial, in a situation where there had been corporate malfeasance. And I was trying really hard to like research his job, and I just couldn't get interested in it. You know, it was the pandemic. I had teenagers in my house and a discombobulated dog, and my husband's a teacher and he was home, and I couldn't focus. And I talked about it with my editor, and she was like, why can't he just be a movie star? Like, give him a fun job. And I was like, can we do that? Like, is that too fun? Like, that was my worry, that it was too fun. And we kind of decided that actually during the pandemic, there was no such thing as too fun. So we just went maximum fun on this book.
Completely. And there's just so much that goes along with it because, of course, you know that they live a totally different life because everybody caters to them. You know that they're inherently going to be gorgeous and just used to everybody saying yes to whatever. So it also just gets you right in there because we kind of know who he is and we're already in love.
Yeah. And I think also there's something about trying to write about something that we're all kind of curious about anyway, like peeking behind the curtain. That's kind of fun. And then once I was doing that, because it's a little fantastical to kind of write about something like that, I wanted to make it as authentic as possible. So I really did actually a lot of research. I read books about fame. I tried to delve into the psychology of it. I interviewed every famous person I could think of that I knew, including actually Patty Murin, the actress, Broadway star Patty Murin, who actually wound up reading the audiobook just by pure coincidence. She's fantastic. She is. Yeah.
Wow. So she go on. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I knew her a little bit. Actually, Jodi Picoult introduced the two of us years ago, and we were a little bit friendly, out on social media. And I asked her if she'd be willing to talk to me, and she was. And so we had this great conversation where I asked her all the acting tips and like, how do you make yourself cry? And what's it like to kiss somebody you've never, met before or barely know? And she was so generous and gracious, and we had such a great time. I didn't even feel like an interview. And then suddenly there it was a year later, fast forward, and she's sending me, a DM on Twitter that she's going to be reading the audiobook. It was fun. That
is meant to be.
Yeah.
The real research, though, I mean, if you're going to maximize fun, was we needed to get you in contact with, like, a Ryan Reynolds or whoever your big crush would be, and you would have to pretend to be the girlfriend for a couple of days, because otherwise, how do you really know what it's like?
That is a very good point. That would have been good research. But I will say the one thing that I did really do kind of accidentally to research this book was I got to meet an actual actor on the set of the Lost Husband movie, which was a movie they made out of one of my books. I got to meet Josh Duhamel.
Yes.
He was there, and I kind of got to spend like a day meeting him. And so actually originally when I thought, I'll make him an actor, I thought, well, maybe I'll make him like a grumpy character actor or something. I was like, maybe we won't go full movie star. But then I just had so much sort of leftover emotional stuff to work with after meeting Josh Duhamel, and I had so many funny stories, and the whole thing was just hilarious. And so he kind of by default, he sort of turned into a super starry movie star.
Oh, I love that. Not to go too far off on the movies, but we'll circle right back to the plot. But since we're talking about it, is it Happiness for Beginners that's being?
Yes.
Are they already filming it? That's already.
They've already filmed it, actually. Yeah. So The Lost Husband came out just as the pandemic was happening, and it wound up doing really, really well. It went to Netflix. It hit #1. It was a kind of a phenomenon. Like, it was great. And then I think partly because of that, the director of The Lost Husband circled back to me later and said, hey, do you want to do another project together? And I was like, yes, I do. So this one is a Netflix original, and they filmed it last fall, and it stars Ellie Kemper as my main character, who I love. And it's also got Blythe Danner, who's Gwyneth Paltrow's mom, who I've loved like my whole life. I was very starstruck to meet her. That's right. And then the love interest guy is an actor named Luke Grimes, who's on a TV show called Yellowstone. He plays Kevin Costner's son.
Like the biggest show on television right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a phenomenal cast. I haven't seen anything yet, but I did get to fly to Connecticut last fall where they were filming, and I got to do a little cameo as a guest at the wedding of my main character. So I did get to meet all those people, which was pretty fun, and get a couple of hugs. Actually, I got hugs from all of them.
Wow. Yeah, they should hug you. Of course they should. You're the reason they're all there. And if the actress that you first named isn't a household name, by hearing the name, she really is an immediately recognizable face, because she's from the Zoe's Infinite Playlist, right?
Gosh, I don't know if she was in that, but she was in The Office.
Yes. Okay.
So, and she also was in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
That's what I meant. Is I swapped my shows. The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She's so adorable. Oh.
Yeah, the cutest.
Oh, how exciting!
I'm she's very funny, but she's also, she's relatable and she's lovable, and it's a good combination of things for that character.
Adorable and charming, and it's actually the type of person that I picture when I'm thinking about Hannah. So one of the things I loved about Hannah so much is her toughness, and also that she's so compact in size as someone who's 5'1", because we're often people disregard your power potentially when you're a petite person.
That is correct. I'm 5'4", so I'm not super tall. But I think I have a tall personality. Like, I have two sisters, and I'm the tallest of the three girls. So I always think of myself as very tall. But I love, Hannah is not tall, the main character of The Bodyguard. So she, the whole shtick about her, and this is true of women bodyguards in real life, because I did a bunch of research about it, is that when you look at a woman bodyguard, it never occurs to you that she's the bodyguard. Like, women bodyguards are actually really in demand, because when you see a woman walking in an entourage, you just think she's the nanny or something, right? She doesn't look like a big bruiser like we kind of our stereotype of the bodyguard is. So they can kind of move undetected in this unique way that makes them really valuable, women bodyguards. So that's the thing about Hannah. She doesn't look like a bodyguard. She looks kind of like a kindergarten teacher, but then she has to protect this big guy who is, huge. Jack Stapleton is a big movie star size person. So yeah, it's funny, but it also works because so much about that job is really not beating people up, right? And car chases. So much about that job is just paying attention, right? Getting the details right, scouting the locations, looking for places where people could hide. It's really more mental in a lot of ways. So it works for her to be that person.
Yeah, smart and detail oriented, and avoiding any kind of conflict if you're doing your job really well, as she says, basically. But the funny part, of course, and what sets us up for our adorable journey is the fact that the things she's got to adjust for this relationship, because she can't just fall into the background as being a scheduler or an assistant. She's got to be the girlfriend, is paying attention to all the stuff that she doesn't necessarily have time for. So give a little description of the personality traits that make Hannah so unique.
Well, she's very competent, right? And she's kind of always on. She's always paying attention to things, and she's not goofy or silly, right? She's a very kind of a serious person. And she takes her job very seriously. She loves her job. And part of the reason she loves her job is because it allows her to travel all over the world, and she's kind of a person who's sort of all about escape. She lives in Houston, Texas, which is my hometown, but she's always trying to get out and go glamorous places and do cool stuff. And what happens at the beginning of the story is that her mom dies, and her boss tells her that she needs to grieve, right? He grounds her, basically. He tells her she's not allowed to run off and ignore all of her grief. She needs to stay there and, feel her feelings. And she doesn't want to do that. That's the last thing she wants to do. And then, when she gets her new assignment, she's really hoping it'll be someplace very, very far away. But instead, it's just right at home in Texas. And it's guarding this movie star, and she's not very happy about it. She's pretty mad about it at the start.
She has to spend a significant amount of time, or has to, it's everybody's dream job, basically, with this movie star and his family out on a ranch. And so as a Texas girl, you got to kind of set the scene for some really beautiful environments that just made it seem like so idyllic to do that kind of, low, slow, cool, relaxing type of getaway.
Well, the thing is, the ranch that they're on in Texas is a real ranch. It's our ranch. It's my family's ranch. It's my grandparents' ranch. So, the story is very kind of high concept in a lot of ways, but I tried to ground it, with a lot of authentic things. And so one of the reasons for me to set it at the ranch is this is a place where I grew up. It's still, my grandparents have both passed away, but it's still in the family. My mom still runs it, a cattle ranch outside of Houston. It's on the Brazos River. And, we've been going there my whole life. We spend every Thanksgiving there, right? And so that was, for me, that was part of the fun, right? It was the pandemic. I was trapped in my house with teenagers and a dog, but mentally, I would go out to this big, open, beautiful ranch where I've spent some of the happiest days of my life. The Stapleton's ranch house is my grandparents' ranch.
That is cool.
It was fun. I was just in there in my head, So everything about the Brazos River and what it's like to be on a ranch and how big cows actually are. Because cows are very gentle creatures, but they're huge and they're kind of scary when you're standing right next to them in a way. So anyway, that stuff is all real. It's all genuine, for my own life experience.
So there is a public service announcement embedded in here, which is you're not supposed to swim in this river. That's right?
You're not swimming in the Brazos River.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom has been terrifying us since infancy that if we swim in the Brazos, we will definitely 100% drown.
That's the only option.
The only thing, you can't come out alive.
Oh my!
not true. But it is, it's a river with a lot of undertows and eddies, and it moves very fast. And so it wouldn't be your first choice of river to swim in for sure.
Good to know. Looking at the comments on your book, it is, I mean, you've got every big name writer endorsing this book, right? It must be so joyful to be able to present something into the world when people know your work, they're excited to read what you're giving them next, and maybe they've got a stack this big of what they're supposed to be reading, but they're like, oh, Catherine's book, I've got to. Is it still thrilling for you when you read these comments of what your esteemed colleagues in the industry have to say about you and your work?
Oh my gosh, it absolutely is. I mean, that's the thing about doing any kind of audience-based job, right? Whether you're a singer or a dancer or a stand-up comedian or a novelist, anything that you do, you have to kind of use your own compass to guide you about what you're going to do. But you also kind of never really know for sure if it's working until you get feedback from the readers and the audience, right? And so you write the book this is the book that I wanted to read during the pandemic, right? This is the fun, flirty, swoony, delightful, sunshiny book that I wanted to cheer myself up during the pandemic. And so I wrote it first to kind of please my own inner reader. But then when it's done and it's time to sort of send it out to the world, I mean, you hope that people will love it like you do, but you don't know for sure. And so when people do love it, especially amazing writers like Christina Lauren and Emily Henry and Jodi Picoult and Susan Mallory, and it's overwhelming, really, and it's delightful and it's thrilling, and I'm thrilled about it. We don't always ask writers for, these are called blurbs, the quotes that you find. Yeah, we don't always ask for blurbs. It's been a few years. So that's another thing. It's been a few years since I had a book tour. It's been a few years since I had a new book. It's been sort of all quiet during the pandemic. And it's been a long time since we've asked anybody for blurbs. So it's all felt very exciting and thrilling and nerve-wracking.
And especially when you go out on tour, to be able to see and connect with the real human beings that are gripping onto your book and ready for it and able to make that connection. It's going to be so much fun, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of human beings, and I love going on book tour, and I love people, and I love hugs, actually. If you see me in the grocery store, come up and give me a hug. I'm excited to see you. So yeah, it's going to be nice. I'm very excited for the book tour. And I will say there's a little storyline in the book where Hannah, the main character, loses this necklace that she has that's got a safety pin on it with little beads. And after I finished writing the book last summer, there's always that weird moment when you finish a book and you don't know what to do with yourself. You're like, who am I now? Like, the book is over. Like, what is my life? And I started making little friendship pins with beads. I got a bunch of safety pins. I went to the craft store. My husband was like, this is getting out of control. Like, you're making too many. But I made a ton of them. I mean, I've made hundreds of them because I suddenly thought, I'm going to take these on book tour. And at that point in the pandemic, I wasn't even sure that there would be a book tour because my 2020 book tour got canceled. But I was like, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to make little beaded friendship pins, and I'm going to give them out to people when I get to go on book tour. And I am going to get to go on book tour in July, and I am going to give out the pins. So that's been really fun. It's like real life and imagination life sort of coming together and overlapping.
Oh, that is so great. And I am so wowed by your well-rounded creativity. I mean, because you paint, you do it all, right? Do you cook and bake as well?
No, I'm a terrible cook.
Okay, phew, at least there's that. Thank goodness. I can still like you.
I do. I have many unmarketable skills. And I'm very crafty. And my daughter and I just started taking a line dancing class. So yeah, I think doing other creative things helps support your sort of main creative thing. I think it's good for you. If you like that kind of stuff, it's really good for you to do that.
You have in the past woven in little, whatever they call them, the Easter eggs, or the kind of overlapping, kind of subtle connective tissue between different books. And I'm reflecting because I digested this the second I got it, and now it's been a minute. Is there anything that people should be looking out for in the Bodyguard?
Actually, no, not this time.
Okay.
This is kind of its own thing. It just kind of emerged on its own. That said, there are lots of characters in this book who I could see myself coming back to at some point. Like Jack Stapleton, the movie star, has a brother named Hank who I think could get a book someday. There's some fun other bodyguards who I think could probably merit a book at some point. So we'll see what happens. But no, this one's at the moment just a standalone. It's not part of a bigger universe.
And we, I guess it was 2020, through our book club, read Things You Save in a Fire. And that was my introduction to you, because I had not read you prior to that. And I was so happy that our readers, I put out, 5 or 6 books that they voted on, and they selected that one. And I was so excited about it because you really are you not only take us away and make us feel all the good feelings and real emotion as well, but you craft very admirable, strong women who are always seem to be carving their own pathway, and it's fun to see that. It's good to see that.
It is fun. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Texas. If you're going to live in Texas and be a woman, you need to be pretty strong. I mean, most of the women that I grew up around were strong people, very clear about what they cared about and what mattered to them and how to be good people in the world. My mom is certainly that way. So yeah, I like to write about women who are actively trying to shape their lives in some way. And I really like to write stories about people who have their lives sort of shredded or ripped apart kind of at the beginning. Because what I'm always really interested in stories is how people get back up after life has knocked them down. That's my favorite thing. And it's partly because I'm not very good at it myself. I'm easily discouraged. And when bad things happen, I just kind of curl up, on the floor and kind of lay there feeling, unhappy about life. But I admire people who are resilient, and I want to be more resilient. I want to be better at bouncing back and faster at it. So I'm always kind of studying it. I'm just sort of endlessly fascinated by people who are able to kind of shake it off, whatever it's been, whatever hard things come people's way. I think that's really the way to live a good life, but I'm not naturally good at it. So I'm always trying to write stories about people who find some way to let the struggles in their lives lead them to their strengths, to go through hard things, but pull wisdom and compassion and courage out of those hard experiences. Because I do intellectually believe that when you go through hard things, those experiences have the potential to make you a better person. But I think it has a little bit to do with how you go through the hard things, right? If you go through it with wisdom and if you teach yourself wise life lessons out of it. So that's what I always try to have my characters do, is go through something hard and wind up better people on the other side.
It is. It's a roadmap, because I am the same as you're describing yourself. My last name is Fierro. My husband calls us the Fierro fatalists. And so everything is catastrophic and danger is lurking around in every moment. And I did a wonderful conversation with a woman named Dr. Christy Nelson. And her book is called Wake Up Grateful. And she calls it awfulizing, and that it's part of your brain that's, makes... And that you can kind of rewire and retrain your brain to start thinking about things in terms of that gratitude and seeing the positive, but it's actual brain activity. And so it's sort of not our fault, but we can change it.
I fully agree with that. I kind of start with death in any situation, and then I have to work my way backwards.
Naturally.
And yeah. I mean, I'm clearly dying. What other explanation could there be? And then I have to kind of walk back from the cliff. But I do think in my adult life, I have managed to lean much harder on gratitude. I keep a little gratitude journal, and I try to every day at the end of the day sort of list all the good little tiny things that happened all day long. Because I think if you look for good things, that's what you see, right? And the problems in life are so demanding, right? They force you to pay attention to them because you have to solve them. It's so easy to kind of ignore the good stuff that's just happening by the side of the road. And I think training yourself to pay attention and to be grateful and to notice the little tiny blessings and joys that are kind of all around you like butterflies, but you can sometimes miss because you're so tunnel visioned on whatever you're needing to fix at the moment. That's so good for you. It's so nourishing, right? It just makes your life better. But I'm not good at it. I'm very forgetful and I forget to do that, but I'm trying. And I do think over the years I've gotten better.
Well, you do a good job of at least spreading joy in the direction of others. I mean, you share things that are making you happy. You share, what you have learned, and you give people an escape and some love and adventure and romance and all of it. So, I mean, you're doing your part, and I know that there are just countless people out there who are incredibly grateful for your talent and for all that you so generously share. So thank you so much, as I am, for your time today. It was absolutely a pleasure to talk to you, as always. The book is The Bodyguard, and it is out as of July 19th. Check your website because you're going on tour, and all is right with the world for at least a minute. Katherine Center, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello, my fellow book lovers out there. That's actually kind of an appropriate thing to say as we talk about a couple of the books that I found recently to bring me the most joy, especially after having such a wonderful conversation with a beautiful writer and beautiful person, Katherine Center. She has just got this warm and nurturing and joyful spirit. And with that, that's why Olivia and I thought that talking about some of the reads that make us feel the most joyful would be a great topic for us to talk about here with my book recommendations. And I say book lovers kind of unironically because that is actually one of the most joyful and fun books I've read all year. A lot of people had talked about Emily Henry's Book Lovers, following up on Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. And it was such a highly anticipated novel. And I'm going to tell you that I found it to really deliver on that promise of really getting to the center of what's really fun and about a romantic comedy, you know what I mean? And it just kind of brings you into a good light persona versus, dragging you into some of the deeper facets of a novel. And especially if you're looking for a beach read, Beach Read is a great book, but I would actually say that Book Lovers was a better book. And I mean, a lot of authors get better with their writing as they go on and write more novels. Sometimes they have little blips along the way, but I really found Book Lovers to be super joyful, and I hope that you take it on your next vacation or in a joyful spot that you find. Maybe it's by the pool, where I also feel a lot of joy, or when you're tucking in for the night and want to read a couple chapters before you drift off into dreamland and give yourself something sweet to think about while you're going into your sleep. So that's one of my most joyful books. Also, finishing up reading The Homewreckers by Mary Kay Andrews, another author that we have spoken to before, very much like Katherine Center. And, it's really interesting because you can hear Mary Kay Andrews' personality and her own background coming into play here, because we do know that she loves to flip houses. And that's kind of what this book is about. Well, not kind of, but it's really what this book is about, is a young woman who sets off and has this whole career of flipping houses in her hometown or in a town she knows and loves very well. And it's just light and airy, very much like The Santa Suit, where it doesn't get too deep but you feel the joy and you feel the excitement and you feel the energy. And I think that's something that can be really uplifting, especially in such a time where, like, here in Arizona, it's 115 degrees. Sometimes the energy that I have to put into a book, especially in the heat, very much like cooking, needs to be very, very light, very bright, very much a palate cleanser. And sometimes it's kind of like watermelon of the season. Like you really want to settle down into something juicy, refreshing, bright, and something that's going to remind you of the summer season. And I think joyful books, very much like these two and these authors, I think these are where we want to go with that joy. And so I really hope that here in this time, as I'm making recommendations to you before I go to sleep, that you find some really great joy and some book recommendations will hit the spot for you. So I'm going to tuck back in and see if I can finish off Homewreckers, which I'm almost done with. It just came out in May. Book Lovers came out earlier this year and has been flying off shelves. If you can get it at the library, if it's one of those too good to be true that it's ready for you to just pick up, I say do it. If you see it on a shelf, grab it. You're not going to have much luck with that in the future. Very much like waiting on any other books on your hold list right now. Lessons in Chemistry, I'm still waiting for you. And that's one of our book club reads that we have coming up. So if you haven't already put yourself on the waiting list for that with the library, I would do that right now. I'm like 26 weeks behind, and I put that in June. And you would think that I would have like an inside scoop. It's like, Olivia, I'm your girl. I'm your partner in crime. I'm your partner in spines. Book spines, thank you. How do you not tell me what books you're choosing for book club? And then I have to wait. Why can't I just get a couple weeks ahead so that I can, get a little bit early access to the library line? Help a girl out. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed this little piece of joy before you go to bed or before you go to work. If you're on your way there right now, I hope that you have a very joyful, healthy, and happy day, and hope you get to a beach very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to Olivia's Book Club, the podcast. I'm your host, Olivia Fierro. Our producer is Margaret Stewart. Our editor is Nick Sanchez. You can send us an email with your thoughts or your book recommendations. Olivia's Book Club at azfamily.com is the address. And you can check out Olivia's Book Club on Facebook or find us on Instagram. Hello, Bookstagrammers, at olivias.bookclub. And Margaret is at Overbooked and Overdue. Make sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast and tell your friends. You can find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music.
This is Olivia's Book Club, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.